for with the Voices of Staff Embracing Change team. We are super excited today to welcome Jill Castro, and she is from the Faculty and Staff Counseling and
Consultation Office.
Consultation Office.
Formerly FaceApp.
So they used to be FaceApp, and I could rattle that off really, really well. But I always mess up what the two C's are in the right order.
It's a mouthful.
So they have had a name change, and they changed their name because when staff are struggling and having challenges, oftentimes they're looking up counseling, and that was nowhere in their name. So they've made some recent changes to their programs to expand and do a few different things, and also had a name change. And Jill's going to spend some time with us talking about how you can take care of yourself during times of change. We always try to offer one presentation in our series every year that focuses a little bit more on self-care and how do you take care of you during times of big change and times of disruptive change, whether that change be at work or in your personal lives. And I always love to have the crew from Jill's office because every time we offer one of these, the RSVP list fills in like that. And so everybody's always very excited to think about how to take care of themselves, not just their office, and ways to lead change in active ways. So with no further ado, I'm going to welcome Jill. I'm going to sit up front by the tech because we're going to be juggling in and out of videos for her presentation.
Okay. Thank you. So thank you for the introduction. Again, my name is Jill Castro from the Faculty and Staff Counseling and Consultation Office. I'm a psychologist, and so what I do by trade is help people work through change. I also am a mom, and my son is just about 1.5. So he's a cutie. He's a cute little nugget baby. But I will tell you that I've gotten used to change. I don't know if anyone else in here is a parent or spends a lot of time with kids, but it's constant change. Change. It's really the only constant in raising a kid. And so change was on my mind when I was making this presentation. It's something that, again, kind of goes through my life like a common thread. And so I'm excited to be here with you to spend time. I'm appreciative that you decided to take some time out of your day to come and really be introspective with me and learn more about yourself. So I applaud you for that. And so from there, we're going to go ahead and get started. As you can see here, there is definitely a definition of change in the dictionary. I don't think this is really going to come as a huge surprise to you what the definition is. The act, process, or result of making different. It sounds really technical, right? Or the frequent and usually sudden passing from one condition to another. I think, we can look up the definition of change in the dictionary any day, but I would venture to guess that it means something unique to you. That when you hear the word change, something happens. Maybe there's an emotional feeling, or you have a thought about a recent event that has happened, whether it be at work or at home or with a partner, or maybe a change that was traumatic for you in the past and didn't go as planned. Sometimes even things we seek out for ourselves can bring about change that's really stressful. And so what I'd like to do with you to just kind of kick things off is, you can go to the next slide, we're going to do a little activity that I like to call brain purging. And this is something that I do with the people that come and see me in my counseling practice. I bring it up as an option typically for people who think that journaling is kind of overwhelming. And so what it is choosing a song. I chose one for you today. It's instrumental. But normally you choose a song that means something to you, that goes along with your mood. And the point is, from the start of the song to the end of the song, you're going to purge whatever's in your brain onto a piece of paper, okay? So what I'd like you to do is to think about change and write down words that you associate with the word change, feelings that come up associated with the word change. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody. It's only for you, okay? So we're going to go ahead and play the song. We don't need to show the video. We just need the song.
So I need to just... All right.
So you don't have to show the... was your brain purge. My hope for you is that something came out, that you felt something, that you were able to note a couple of words that go along with change for you. Would anyone be comfortable sharing some of the words that you came up with? Yeah.
Shifting gears.
Yeah, shifting gears. That's a good one.
New opportunities.
Okay.
Letting go.
Good.
I had some for positive, some for negative, but one was again. And then I also had one that's draining.
Yeah. So the two words up here were again and draining. And both words on the positive and the negative side.
Will there be coffee?
Will there be coffee? Yep. Good question. Yeah.
Mine's more of a statement.
Okay.
I get anxious if I don't know what the end goal is.
Yes, that's a really good one. I get anxious if I don't know what the end goal is. Yep. Sorry, there's one behind you and then right in the... Yep, go for it.
I had change can be harmonious, collective, it can be unifying, and it can be also individual.
Yeah, definitely. It's good. Go for it.
Sometimes it can be emotional and frustrating.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Growth. It sounds like there's some common themes here. Yep. So change can be scary, change can be good. It can be, really therapeutic, but also it can be really anxiety provoking at times. So there's a lot of good and bad associated with it. It sounds like you all are on the same page with that. Yeah? Okay. I do want to talk a little bit about change versus transition. These are words that are sometimes used interchangeably, but I think it's important to know the difference. I did forget to mention in the beginning that if you would like the slides, I'm happy to email them to you later. So don't burden yourself taking too many notes. I just want you guys to listen. So the difference between change versus transition, change is really situational. So a change might be something like moving to a different location, getting a new supervisor, having somebody in your family get an illness, something like that. Can you guys think of any other changes that are pretty common or changes that you've had recently? Some of you are nodding, so I know you're with me. Yeah. Okay. A breakup or a divorce. It's a huge one. Yes. So changes in relationship, changes at work, becoming a part of a new team. Transition is the psychological piece. So transition is the process of working through a change emotionally, coming to terms with a new situation. So when someone says that you can adjust your attitude, they are probably referring to adjusting your attitude towards the transition and not necessarily having anything to do with controlling the change, right? So we can much more easily control what we do with transitional feelings than we can with change. We know change is coming, right? And every job you've had, I can guarantee you there's been a change, whether you liked it or not. There has been for me. Yeah. In every relationship you've ever been in, has there been a change, whether you liked it or not? Yes. So we can't stop change, but we can change how we transition. And that's what we're going to focus on today. Okay? Questions about that? Okay. There are 4 phases of change, and I want to talk about them with you just so that you can identify when you're going through them, if there is a work-related change or a change in your personal life. The first one is denial. Denial is the feeling that this isn't really happening to me. There's probably nothing will happen. It's just talk. Has anyone ever been through denial before? Yes. Okay. There's sometimes this apathy, like numbness, like this isn't going to be that big of a deal. I've done this before. I really don't think that they're going to make the changes that they say they're going to. Could be denial. Some might begin to kind of withdraw, and that's because that there are some emotions associated with change that are scary. So do you agree that sometimes denial keeps us feeling safe? Yeah. So denial keeps us feeling safe, and that's sometimes where we go when we feel threatened. So we just kind of tell ourselves that there's nothing to be worried about. In this phase of denial, we do have a tendency to downplay what's happening, kind of brush it off, like I said. And as change becomes more real, then we kind of move through the next phase. And I do want to say that sometimes these phases don't happen in order. So you could have things kind of happening all at different times. And that's totally normal. Each person is different. Yeah.
And then she didn't mention focusing on the past, because I've seen that a lot too.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
It's always better before.
Yes, that's a really good point. So focusing on the past might mean, like you said, thinking everything was better before, assuming that change is definitely not going to be good, so we don't even want to talk about it. Like, we don't want to entertain the idea that it could be a good thing, so we'll just deny that it's even happening. Yeah. And this denial is powerful stuff, right? Yeah. Sometimes we don't even know when we're in it. It's easier sometimes to see it in other people than it is to see in ourselves. I can tell you that, for sure. You can go to the next one. Resistance is, as you know, this strong feeling of being opposed to something. Resistance to change might feel like you're just putting your feet down, you're trudging through the mud, you're not really sure about what the change is going to feel like, so you're just not all the way into it yet. And if you've ever supervised anybody, then you know that when you bring a change upon them, that resistance kind of feels tough to deal with. Yeah. Resistance can bring about a heightened withdrawal, so a pulling back. Kind of, I don't want to even be involved with this anymore. Maybe I'm just going to look for a new job. Maybe I don't even want to work here anymore. I don't want to deal with more change, and it just doesn't feel like something that you would have asked for. There's a resistance there. Lowered productivity does often come from resistance. So if you're not happy with a change that's being proposed, it often makes you want to withdraw from your job duties. And that's something to keep in mind if you're thinking about any job changes, either with you or with anybody in your department. Does this make sense to you guys? Okay. The next phase is exploration. And so this is the transition period. It's like you're sticking your little toe in the pool to see how it feels. If it's cold, if it's warm. You're starting to kind of come out a little bit and think like, okay, I could do this. I've dealt with change before. I could deal with change again. Maybe I didn't want this to happen, but is it possible that this isn't the worst thing in the world? That's exploration. So it could be both exciting and confusing, right? It's all of the things. It doesn't mean necessarily that you feel good about it, but it means you're willing to entertain it and to kind of take a look at it as maybe being something that could be productive. There's a lot of concern about details. There's some confusion. Somebody had mentioned anxiety about not knowing like what the role is during change, and that can happen a lot. So this is the time to really clarify those feelings, to clarify what the change means, to ask a lot of questions, to look into options. There are times where, let's say there's a workplace change, and that really means that the workplace is not a good fit for you anymore. That does happen. And so in this phase, you may then start looking at some new ideas or seeking out some new options. So once you've made it to this phase, that's what the focus is. Any questions about exploration? Okay, I see that you guys have been through this. At least that's what I'm gathering by the looks on your faces. Okay. And then the last is commitment. So that's when the energy is focused. There's emotional acceptance, like this is happening, I can roll with it, I'm going to be okay. There may be some identification with a new group or a new supervisor or a new team, anything like that. And you start to kind of take decisive action. Okay, this is what I need to do. You've drawn on your resources and you can go forward and kind of say, now I feel like I can make an informed decision moving forward. And attempting to make a new situation fit with you. I think that's probably the most important aspect here, is that you've done the work. You know now that a situation is not going to change you completely, change your identity completely. And so you are attempting now to make the change fit in with you and your values and how you work. Yeah? Okay. The question that I really like to ask everybody is, how do you know that you're stressed? What is the first indication in your body that you're stressed? Yeah. Your eye twitches. That's a good tell. Yeah.
My stomach hurts.
Okay. Yeah. Your stomach is a knot. That's one of mine too. Yeah. Like that sinking feeling. Yep. How else do you know? Edgy, like, yeah. Maybe a little snippy sometimes. Yes. Irritable. Yeah, your chest feels heavy, or sometimes tightness in the chest. For me, when I know I'm stressed, my shoulders are like up here. So, and people have said to me, Jill, like your shoulders are like up to your ears. You know, that's how I know. And sometimes other people have to point it out to me, but I feel it right here in my neck and my shoulders. How else do you guys feel it? Yeah.
I know I clench my teeth really hard.
Yes, that's a common one, clenching your teeth. And sometimes, again, we don't notice this stuff until we have a headache, and then we're like, oh, crap, I've been clenching my teeth again. Yep.
I think lack of sleep, you know, being just kind of highly reliant all the time.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know, things which don't make sense.
Exactly. Lack of sleep or difficulty sleeping, so you might be tired more often. Yeah.
I sometimes feel like an oversensitivity to sound and light, and like this sense of need to sort of hunker down.
I get that too. Yeah. Just everything is like overstimulating.
I think my emotions ride right at the surface, good, bad, or otherwise. My ability to like filter and like breathe before I react are compromised.
Yes. So there's not a lot of lag time between.
There is no space between what's here and what's here.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example. Anything else? Any other ways that you know you're stressed?
I feel really restless. I just don't know what my mind cannot focus.
Right. Difficulty focusing, concentrating. Yeah, the restlessness is a big one. Yeah.
I have a really odd one I'll share.
Okay, yeah.
I pick my eyelashes out.
Okay.
I find myself sitting there and putting them on a white piece of paper.
Okay.
And like organizing. I know it sounds crazy, but I get stressed. I'm like, oh crap, I must be stressed. I've got 12 hours.
Yeah, it's really true. Sometimes we engage in these physical things that we don't even realize we're doing. So like if you're a nail biter like me, that's one of them. Like picking something, it's almost to the point where we do it so naturally that we don't even realize it until, like you said, oh no, I've been, there's some eyebrows on my paper.
Monica, I chew on my lip.
Yeah, chewing on your lip. Yeah. And so we do these things because we're anxious, right? And we're stressed out. And so these are the first signs that we have. Someone else had their hand up. Yeah.
You guys were talking stress eating.
Oh, yeah. Stress eating.
Quantities of that.
Totally.
No such thing as single serve.
Right. I mean, you find yourself daydreaming about like comfort food and pizza. Yeah.
Standing next to Linda's.
Right. So, yeah.
I feel like retail therapy. Have I been ordering milk?
Oh, yeah. Like when I've had too many Amazon orders, that might be a sign that I'm stressed out. Yeah. You can't eat. So we each have our own things, right? Some people eat too much, some can't eat. Some people sleep too much when they're stressed, some can't sleep, right?
Yeah, I can't.
Right, but we all have a thing or a set of things that we do that if we really paid attention, we might be able to see them happening even, a little bit earlier than we have been in the past, right? You guys gave a lot of good examples on this one. Have you heard of the fight or flight response? You guys know what that is? Okay. Really, that just means that your body feels that there's some kind of threat. And what happens when you have anxiety or stress is that your body is in fight or flight mode all the time. Fight or flight mode is designed so that when we're being chased by a tiger, we run. That's what it's there for. Are we being chased by a tiger at work when they're saying that we need to work on a new team? I mean, I might feel that way sometimes, I don't know. But our body has the same reaction. And so what happens if we're at fight or flight mode constantly? What happens? All this stuff, right. All this stuff. So our heart rate increases, our blood pressure increases, our breathing rate increases. And if you are like this for a prolonged period of time, what happens then?
Heart attack.
Heart attack. You get sick, right? What else can happen?
You can have a panic attack.
You could have a panic attack.
Times 100.
Exactly. Could you do your job if you were like this all the time?
No.
I don't think so. I mean, people can do it for a lot longer than one would think, but it leads to something called burnout. Okay? And burnout means you're so stressed out that you can't work anymore. And so this is why this stuff is important. Our bodies are hardwired to fear change. We need to retrain our brains to teach our body that change is not a tiger chasing after us. Okay? It doesn't have to be. But we have to teach ourselves that. It's not something that anyone else is going to teach us or show us how to do. Okay? So that's what we're going into now. Here's a question for you. What actually causes stress? And here's an example. I want you guys to fill in the blank. A is some kind of action in the real world. I like to use the example of getting cut off while driving. There are some people in here that really are like, okay, whatever. I mean, people cut me off every day. And then there are people who, they know that if they get cut off while driving, it's not pretty. They do not feel happy about that. So B, you guys fill in the blank. C, it leads to a consequence. So the consequence would be stress. I will tell you like one example here. So if someone gets cut off while driving, B could be that they get really angry and then they decide to chase the person who just cut them off with their vehicle.
I might have done that.
Okay, someone might have done that before. It leads to stress in your body, right? You will feel fight or flight if you decide to chase somebody down with your car. Okay? Yes, so will the other person. What would be another example of A? Like, what's another action in the real world that could happen to you? What's something that just happens to you on a daily basis? Yeah.
Being asked to do something last minute that I could have been informed of these practices.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. So being asked to do something at the last minute. Yeah.
Not being informed of all the details when you're working on.
Exactly. Not being informed of all the details, sure. Those two kind of go hand in hand. So not having all the information that you need or being told at the last minute. And if we went down to B, what are some examples of things you've done in the past when that's happened?
I've been really angry, but done it anyway.
Yeah, just take a deep breath.
Okay. So you say get really angry but kind of do it anyway. Okay. You say you take a deep breath.
Yeah.
So those are two different ways of coping, right? That lead to two different C's here. What else? What else might we have done if somebody tells us at the last minute, hey, Jill, you're going to have to get this done before you leave. I know it's 4:45 and you usually get out of here at 5, but this needs to get done today. Say no. You could. Okay. So there's a lot of different things that we could do, right? I mean, what we choose to do in B leads to C, right?
Yes.
If we choose to take a deep breath and strategize, that could lead to a healthier C. If we choose to let ourselves get really angry about it and then kind of huff and puff and then go home and take it out on our husband or our wife, I'm guessing that might lead to a C that doesn't feel as good. Am I telling you that you should always just take whatever everyone gives to you and with a smile and say, like, of course, I will definitely do that for you right now. Is that what I'm saying? No. But are there times where you could be a little more mindful about B? Yeah. So that's what I want you to keep in mind, is what happens in B and how does that lead to C. So some of this stuff really is within our control. It might feel like when somebody cuts you off, you have no choice but to give them the finger and then swerve them off the road. I mean, really, I've talked to people who have said, like, they asked for it. I have no choice. And so I would challenge somebody who thinks that way to think differently. Like, what choice do you really have? And you probably have a couple. So it's important to take a look at that. Okay. There's two different kinds of stress. There's eustress, which is positive. It's a health and performance, they continue to improve even as stress increases. Can we think of a time when we had some positive stress? Exercise, sure. Yeah, exercise never feels good to me. No, I would never choose to do it for fun. Just being honest.
Planning a wedding.
Planning a wedding, sure. So even though there's stress, it's kind of positive. It's going towards a positive goal. You feel generally good about it. Okay, a divorce? Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Yeah. That's why people have divorce parties. I mean, that's true.
Learning something new.
Yes, learning something new. There's a lot of struggle associated with it. Has anyone ever learned a new language as an adult? That's hard. That's really hard. But there's enough motivation to keep you going forward. Taking a class is another good example. Maybe a supervisor says to you, like, I see a lot of potential in you. I want to see you do more public speaking. And you think, like, oh, that sounds scary, but it's moving you to do something different. It's moving you in a direction. Okay? You guys are like, no, I will never like to do that.
Their boss is sitting behind.
Okay.
That's who they're making faces.
The faces up here are really funny.
They're hoping I don't ask.
So distress is negative, and it refers to an unpleasant or harmful stress under which health and performance begin to deteriorate. So obviously we don't want people to be in distress at work, right? That's not productive. We don't want people to feel like they're stuck and the only way out is to pull back and not do their job anymore. Or a good example kind of in life is when you have a relationship problem and so you're in distress. It's like you can't even picture solving it, so you just break up with somebody or you pull back or you're not talking to somebody. So these are important to keep in mind. Stress isn't always negative, just kind of like anxiety isn't always negative. A good kind of anxiety, for example, is like, has anyone ever done theater in here? Yeah, okay. I did theater when I was in high school, and I always felt those butterflies, and when I would go out on stage, I felt like I might throw up, but it was a good kind of anxiety. Like, it was an excitement, and I knew that I was pushing myself to do something that made me uncomfortable. So the goal isn't to not have anxiety or stress, but we don't want you to be in constant distress. You guys see the difference? Okay. Cool. So here's the big question. What can we do to cope? And that is a really big question that I'd really like you to think about. Remind me what's on the next slide. Okay. And so we'll talk about kind of some tips for hardiness and resilience during times of transition and change. And so this will take some time because I'd like you to think about it really personally. How to adjust your attitude to minimize stress. So when you guys see this glass, I know you've probably been asked this question before. Do you consider yourself a glass half full or a glass half empty kind of person? I know. This glass is not a good example. You guys know what I'm talking about. Is it usually half full or is it half empty, or does it depend? And what if it's gross medicine that you have to take? What if it's something disgusting that you have to drink, but you need to get it over with? Does it change? Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah. So for me, I'm typically a glass half full kind of person, but if I have to take, like if anyone's ever been pregnant and you have to take those glucose tests, it's basically like drinking a disgusting bottle of, I don't even know how to describe it, like stale orange pop. You have to get it down. To me, I like to think of the glass as being half empty. But in general, I like to think of the glass being half full. So can you go back and forth depending on what you're trying to swallow? It's situational, exactly. And does it benefit? If you're going through something really hard, could it be beneficial then to think of the glass as half empty? Okay. So I want you to play around with this idea in your head that sometimes when you need to, you can make a shift in your mentality to think, okay, this is temporary. It's something that I only have to swallow for a very relatively short period of time in the big scheme of things. Or you can shift it to think, this could actually be a glass half full kind of situation. I could learn a lot about myself. I could, really grow from this process. So what I'm asking you to do is to think flexibly, that you don't always have to be glass half full or glass half empty, but whatever gets you through the situation better, I want you to ask yourself that. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. There are a couple of different things that we can do to combat stress. I know you guys know some of these, and I'm really interested in kind of what you're actively doing to combat stress so we can give each other some ideas. Here are some biological tips. So the first one is sleep hygiene. I'm curious, is anyone really good at sleep? Yeah, okay. What do you do? Do you have a sleep routine?
No, I think mine's genetic.
Okay.
My mom can fall asleep instantly, and so can I.
Okay, so some of it is genetic. Yeah. Has anyone ever tried to make a change to their sleep hygiene? Yeah, some of you guys have. Okay, what kind of changes did you make?
I did an official cognitive behavioral intervention program because I have chronic insomnia.
Okay, so, and did that help?
Yeah.
Okay, so a pretty rigid CBT program, cognitive behavioral program is really goal-oriented, where you have a plan of how you're going to specifically make changes in your life, and so that can help with insomnia, yeah. Has anyone else made a change to their sleep hygiene? I'm always curious what people are doing to change. Yeah, you did?
I have this routine. I have to have a shower.
Okay.
Before I go to sleep. And also my sheet has to be changed at least once a week.
Okay.
I have this thing about feeling, pretty calm.
Yeah.
But that is my routine, They help me to sleep, and I also have a cup of tea.
Okay, that's a good sleep routine. The reason why I'm interested in helping you kind of discover the routines that help you is because when things start to feel a little crazy out in life, when there's a lot of change happening, these are the routines that we need more and more in our life to feel secure. So if you don't have a sleep routine, that's okay, but if it's something that you really depend on for your mental health, I want you to note that during times of stress is the time for you to really rely on these routines to get us through times of stress. Exercise is a big one. Do we have any big exercisers in here? Okay, cool. Any runners? That's a popular one. Yeah, okay. To me, I don't run, but running really, in the way people have described it to me, is like meditation. It's like your brain kind of reaches the next level when you're running, and it's almost like your legs are moving, but you're like on another plane. Exercise can definitely do that for you. Watching caffeine use and alcohol use is really important. I think when you're having times of stress, it's something that we sometimes forget. Somebody had mentioned how much coffee do we have, and so I want to kind of just make you aware that when you have too much coffee, it makes you feel like you're on edge, so it can actually make stress even worse. And alcohol actually is one of the things, of course, people turn to during times of stress, but it's a depressant. So it kind of has a backfire effect if not used in moderation, and that's something to keep kind of tabs on. We're going to talk more about practicing relaxation and mindfulness, But you guys already did today one exercise related to mindfulness, and that was the exercise we did where we did the brain purge. That's something that you can do at home anytime. So if you feel like there's something that you just need to talk to somebody about, but you don't have anyone to talk to, or you feel like you just want to process a change, I recommend putting a boundary on it like we did with the music, a start time and an end time. And during that time, allow yourself to really just let it out of your brain. And you'd be surprised how therapeutic that can be, because it makes room in your brain for other stuff. And that's what we have to do sometimes. Okay? So we already did one today. We're going to do another one today too. We're on a roll. Okay? Social habits. So sometimes seeking social support is helpful. I would venture to guess that some of you, when you're stressed out, you retreat back, so you don't really want as much social support as you once did. I would say if social support makes you feel good, then this is the time to really seek it out when you're feeling high stress or when there's a lot of change going on. So your friends, your family, anyone else supportive to you really could be kind of your safety net that you put around you when you're going through big changes. What I like to do when I'm going through a big change is I like to schedule social things for myself and kind of scatter them around so that I have things to look forward to. And scheduling for me is really good because I'm not the kind of person who would just call someone on the fly and say, like, hey, what are you doing? Do you want to go out? It's like, I guess I'm not in that phase of my life, but it's too hard with a kiddo. But I do like to schedule it. I schedule it kind of like it's an appointment almost, and I put it on the calendar, and that really helps me to be accountable for being social with other people during times of stress. I know it seems impossible to make times for hobbies and other interests, but I feel like we have to do it. We need work-life balance in some way, shape, or form in order to deal with change. What do you guys do? What are your hobbies? Yeah. Say that again?
Dog agility.
Dog agility. That's so cool. That's a great hobby. What else do we do? Yeah. Gardening. Reading. Scrabble games. It's a good one. Yep.
I think she said scrapbooking.
Oh, scrapbooking? I thought you said Scrabble games. I was like, I love Scrabble. Yeah. Scrapbooking is a good one. I like that one too. Yeah.
I'll keep the Scrabble then.
Oh, Scrabble over here then. Okay. So making time, this is something I tell people a lot, and I sometimes have to remind myself of it, that you have to be the guardian of your own time. Nobody is going to do that for you. If people keep asking you to do things after hours, for example, or people keep emailing you after a certain point, and you keep answering them, you are basically sending the message, I love doing this. I love answering emails after 5 o'clock, and I am happy to do anything you ask me at any time. They don't know anything different. If that's the message that you're giving through your actions, that's what's going to keep being expected of you. So you are the one who has to say, and I understand there's different job types, and if working at night is part of your job, then obviously this doesn't apply. But it's okay to say, after this time I'm not answering any emails unless it's an absolute emergency. In the case of a real true emergency, people will call you. People don't typically email an emergency that requires you to respond right away. So we might condition ourselves to think that emergency will come through our email, but it's not that likely. And so you have to be the guardian of your time. That's something really, really important, and that will help you socially and during times of stress. Okay. And then emotional. This is how we take care of ourselves emotionally. We can take a step back to look at all the different sides of the situation, and so sometimes we might want to talk to our friends, our coworkers, our family, and sometimes we want to talk to a stranger, and that's where counseling comes in. I will say I see a lot of people in counseling who have never been to counseling before, and they never really understood it. They think it's kind of weird that you would go and talk to someone that you've never met before about your problems. But I will tell you, the number one thing people say to me is, I'm so glad I talked to you because you're not sitting at my dinner table. We're not going to hang out after this. You're not my sister. You're not my friend. And there's benefit to that. I'm not giving anyone advice at the end of the day, I don't lose any sleep over what other people in my counseling practice decide to do. And that's the difference between sharing with your friends and sharing with a counselor. So I encourage anybody to do that. And you guys know I'm biased because that's what I do for a living. But I want you to take that into consideration. Taking your time before reacting. This is something that can be actually really concrete. I mean, you can literally tell yourself, after getting some news, I'm going to take 24 hours before I respond and stick to that. It could be, I'm feeling really angry right now, but I'm going to give myself 20 minutes on the clock, set a timer or set your phone, and ask yourself, if I still feel the same way in 20 minutes, then I'll go from there. But if you can give yourself time to just chill, it will help you immensely. And to take some deep breaths. I guarantee you won't feel as heated as you did in the beginning. So again, this is something you got to give to yourself. I need time. Let me go and give myself some time. Because often people won't give it to you. Choosing your battles really thoughtfully. This is a hard lesson learned. But I find that people who do this are much happier. Do you know anybody who does this? Do we have any good models of people? Do you know anyone? You don't have to say out loud, but in your brain, can you think of someone who really is strategic and picks their battles thoughtfully? Yeah, I mean, I know a couple of people, and I strive to do that. I'm not perfect at it, but it really does make a huge difference when you can learn to let some things go and not give it as much weight. And it's something to practice. Using humor to keep problems in perspective, that's a huge one. We don't want to take things too seriously all the time. Do any of you guys, you do that? You use humor as a way to cope? Yeah, for sure. That's always a good one. And how many of you are really good at saying no? Not that many. Okay. And why is it hard to say no?
I'd say because people don't always know how to hear no.
Okay. And so if people don't know how to hear it, what does that mean for us? What kind of feelings would drive us to not say no?
You don't want to disappoint someone.
Okay. We don't want to disappoint somebody.
Keep challenging ourselves.
Okay. So maybe some of it is internal expectations of ourselves, like we're not the kind of person that says no.
I think it's also excusing yourself from something you've been involved in. It's not just saying no when you get a new request, but
right.
it's I think I'm getting tired of this and I need to back away to make room for something new.
Right. Yep.
I'm much likely to say no at work than I am at home. At home, much easier. No, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
At work, I don't feel like I don't want to do that. Nope.
It's, you know what? Yeah, I haven't worked at U of M for super long. I've worked here just about 2 years. But I can say one thing definitively, and it's that the majority of people who work here have very high standards of themselves. And there's a lot of people who have type A personalities who prefer to do everything on their own, and they don't say no because they're high achievers in their life. And so when it comes to work, they like to get things done. And like you said at home, you're like, no.
You have to somewhere.
Right, of course, but work is different.
I was just going to say, I have been so much happier since I just said no.
Okay, great.
And I might not be like that blunt.
No,
honestly.
right.
But guarding myself with that and being able to say no does help you feel much happier.
It does, especially if you're a yes person. So it's important to think about. I want you to really take a look at that. I can see some of your wheels are turning by the looks on your faces that you're trying to decide if you're a yes person, if you say yes too much. And if you do, how can you say no sometimes? I wouldn't encourage all of you to say no all the time, obviously. But is there an eloquent way to say no when something really isn't in your best interest or you're getting really too stressed? We have to be able to say no sometimes. And that's another way that we can be less stressed. Okay, so there's some food for thought. this is just a quote by one of my favorite people, Brene Brown. You guys probably have heard of her, or some of you may have. When we deny the story, it defines us. When we own the story, we can write a brave new ending. I like that. It's empowering. It's powerful. Basically, it's telling us that if we use the tools that we have and work on developing new tools on how to take care of ourselves and how to manage stress, then we can change the ending of the story. Change and stress don't have to get the best of us. It just doesn't. And so, really, you have much more power when it comes to change than you think you do. Okay? Thoughts about this quote? Does it make sense? You're into it? Okay. Better self-care during times of change and stress. Go forward. The first one is take intentional breaks. What do you think that means? What does it mean to take an intentional break? Yeah.
Set your timer to get up and walk around for
Sure.
every hour, every 12
Yeah, so exactly. So you're telling yourself, I'm going to be doing some walking today, so every so often I'm going to take an intentional break to do some walking. How many of you just get breaks at work and you find yourself kind of like scrolling through your phone or looking on Facebook or doing something like kind of mindless? And that's cool if that's what you want to do. But what I would challenge you to do is to really take some more thought about what you're doing with your time. So if you find that whenever you go on your break and you look at Facebook, you end up getting stressed out because Lord knows what you're reading on there. There could be family drama. There could be news stuff. If it doesn't feel good, then you might want to do an experiment and use your time differently during the day, or to say, I'm going to take a break, but what I'm going to do is walk around the building outside and maybe sit and enjoy the weather, or listen to some music, or just eat my lunch and not look at my phone. And I'm going to save Facebook for the end of the day, or a certain time of day that's less stressful for you. So that's what being intentional means. It's setting an intention and using your time wisely, taking a look at what you're doing and seeing how it can feed you in a different, better way. Okay? Finding novelty in daily routines is an interesting one. Does anyone have a Google Home? Do you guys know what the Google Home is? You've seen those commercials probably where you say, okay, Google, and then it does whatever you want. Okay. Yeah, it's like Alexa. My husband talked me into putting a Google Home in our shower. Like, it's above where the light in our shower used to be. And we have high ceilings, so it's not like touching the water or anything. But it's the best way to make showering a fun time. It's like a party for me every morning. And so I know this sounds really bizarre, and showering is something people do usually every day, whatever, if not every day, every couple of days. I figured out a way to find novelty in a daily activity. Some days I listen to music that's relaxing. Some days I listen to music that's upbeat. It really wakes me up in the morning, and it actually starts my day off kind of in a better way. When he just suggested to put it there, I thought he was nuts. He's in technology, and I just thought, like, why do we need that in the shower? But I get it. It's fun. Does anyone have a commute that's longer than like half an hour? 20 minutes? Okay. You guys all live in Ann Arbor? No? Okay. I guess it doesn't matter. It could even be 10 minutes, 15 minutes. What do you guys do in the car? Yeah. Okay. And is that helpful? Okay. Good. Okay. You don't get as cranky when people cut you off. Yeah. Podcasts. Okay. So for me, podcasts are sometimes good, sometimes not. Sometimes the other day I was driving far, like an hour, and I told you guys I have a toddler, and all I did was listen to nothing. It was a nice change of pace. Sometimes you do that, right? And so sometimes podcasts are really nice, and they make me feel like I'm being productive, and other times it's like too much talking, and I need to just shut it off. So what I'm suggesting you do is to really be mindful about how you use your time in the car. Coming to work, leaving work, that is your buffer period between here and home. So it does make a difference what you're listening to in there, if anything, to get your mind kind of in gear, either to come here or to leave here. And so again, that's being really mindful of your time. It's being the guardian of your time. And that can really help approach change if there's big changes going on in your life. Shifting your attention to your body is a good one, because sometimes our thoughts are kind of like up here in anxiety zone. Do you guys ever know, I'm sure you know what it feels like to be like lost in your thoughts. Like it's like you can't turn off your brain. So one of the things that I suggest doing is anything that gets you back to feeling where your body is. And meditation can do this sometimes. If you've ever taken a yoga class, they'll talk about kind of the, where your feet meet the mat, where your hands meet the mat. You don't have to be in yoga to do this though. One of the tricks that I use is I go into the bathroom and I let the water run over my hands, and I take a few deep breaths with my eyes closed. Now, if you have a communal bathroom, people might look at you weird. But it's okay. It only takes a few seconds. And if you really prefer not to close your eyes, then you can take a few deep breaths and just let the water run over your hands. And only you know that you're doing a really brief mindfulness exercise. And so what it does is it brings you back into your body. We can also do this by doing a really brief exercise where we ask ourselves to feel what it feels like to be in the chair, kind of feel like what our legs feel like when they meet the chair, mentally go through from your head to your toes, kind of focusing on each part of your body. Again, that can only take a couple of minutes, and it makes a huge difference. Engaging in short meditations, which we're actually going to do today. Getting artsy is one of my favorite things to do. Coloring is cool. Again, like it was when I was a kid. If any of you have ever been to Michael's recently, you'll see there's huge walls of coloring books right now for adults. Did you guys know that?
Yeah.
It's so cool, right? Yeah, it's really relaxing. I like coloring, and you can see, some of you grabbed our bookmarks. That's for the purpose of coloring. Yep. The reason I like it is because it takes off the pressure of having to do free drawing or paintings. A lot of times people think, especially people who like a lot of control, they have a hard time just putting pen to paper and letting it flow. That's a lot of pressure for people. But coloring, you're really just picking colors and the lines are already there for you. And again, it has a start and a finish. So it feels really good. So getting artsy is a good one. Scheduling self-care activities in advance. So it could be a walk with a friend, it could be a massage, it could be something totally free. But what I'd like you to do is to schedule it, put it in your planner or in your calendar so that you know it's coming. And that kind of helps hold people accountable. It's even better if you have another person to hold you accountable, that you two are going to do something together, or somebody that you can trust to say, hey, how was that massage you said you were going to get the other day? To make sure people are holding up their end of the bargain. What are some self-care activities that you guys think you might be able to schedule? A hair appointment, yep.
I'm pointing at her. Amanda, this is Amanda.
Okay.
She's scheduled once a week, I think,
Oh, yeah.
having a self-care half hour during our lunch break.
Beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
once a month, yeah.
Okay.
For us to do it whatever we wanted together.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So even once a month to do whatever you want that's related to self-care. I actually had a unit, I had a department who works with really, really difficult, sensitive clients. I like to say on the front line, dealing with a lot of victims of sexual assault. They called me and asked me to come and run a self-care group with them once a month, and I did that with them for 5 months, an hour out of each month. And they learned a ton from it. And all it did was set an intention that for 1 hour a month they were going to talk about self-care or do some kind of self-care activity. And even that 1 hour a month really shifted things. It shifted things in the whole department. So it goes a long way. What else can you schedule? Yeah.
Our department actually has a room called the Zendan. We have a
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And I really am going to
What's stopping you? Yeah.
forget about it.
You forget about the Zendan. Yeah. Yeah, I would say use it. You know, it's so interesting when that stuff pops up that we think like, oh, that's nice, there's a Zendan, so other people can use it when they're stressed out. And then we forget that, like, we need to use it too. Like, we're just as stressed out. What else? Yeah.
You actually block time on your calendar during the day for a intentional break.
Yes.
Like actually.
Yeah.
On your calendar.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. An intentional break. You're right. And so I will say, when one person in the department starts doing these kinds of things, it creates a ripple effect. It holds extra weight if you're a supervisor, and so you can model it for your supervisees. But even just as a staff member, if you talk to your supervisor about it and say, you know, I'm going to be more mindful about how I use my time, and so I'd like to tell everyone else about how I'm doing this, and it really starts to let other people know that this is acceptable and this is okay. Yeah. So you can be a role model for self-care. Okay? Yes?
One of my friends from grad school was always really good at taking time for himself. And so I always remind myself of what he could do. Because right now, we joke, our bosses are on 24/7. So it's very easy to get sucked in. So one thing that I've really tried to do is take from my friend's advice was you know what? I'm just going to have a weekend day where I don't do anything with work. I don't even think about it. I don't feel bad about not looking at it, right? Because I'll do nothing.
Yeah.
And it's really helpful to just actually step out.
Absolutely. It's so good. People forget how good it feels to turn off your cell phone for a whole day. Wow. It's like you are so connected to that thing, or most people are, that you really have to intentionally take a step back, and when you do, a little bit goes such a long way. It really does. Does anyone have any good apps on their phone for self-care? Is anyone using Calm.com or anything like that? Okay. Anything you would recommend?
Meditation.
Okay, great.
Like a focus timer.
Okay.
Do 25 minutes of work and then take a 5 or 10 minute break. 25
Great.
minutes of work, 10 minutes.
Perfect. That's a great app. Yeah.
My Apple Watch tells me to breathe.
Uh-huh.
A 1 minute break takes one of those.
Do you listen to it? Okay. It's there.
But it's a reminder that.
Right. It's a reminder that you should. And I think that's great. So sometimes we have to trick ourselves into remembering that we have to do mindfulness stuff, because we go on autopilot through the day, and then we just don't think about it. So ways to trick yourself would be using your Apple Watch, setting a timer in your calendar, setting a timer in your phone, making a deal with a friend that at 3 o'clock every day you go on a brief walk around the building, and so your friend comes to get you. There are people in my building who have their walking shoes tucked right under their desk, and they walk religiously around the building at a certain time. They do it in a group, so they hold each other accountable for that. So these are things that you can do to deal with change. I really like mantras. Do you know what a mantra is? Sometimes people in yoga think of a mantra like, that's kind of a mantra. I think of a mantra as an inspirational couple of words or a phrase that really gives you power and makes you feel like you have control, or that everything's going to be okay. And so I'd like you guys to think about if you could come up with a self-care mantra. And this is something that you could write in your office or at home, anywhere. Some of you might already have one, but you've just never really thought about it as a self-care mantra. Is there anything that you guys think of that you tell yourself during times of change to just get yourself through it? Somebody was singing Let It Go in the hallway.
This too shall pass.
This too shall pass, yeah. Yeah.
Mine comes from a book
Okay.
that I read ages ago, Dune.
Okay, yeah.
Frank Herbert.
My husband's a fan.
I shall not fear, fear is the mind killer.
Yeah, that's powerful.
It is a good one.
That is a good one. She said, I shall not fear, fear is the mind killer.
There's more to it, but I can't remember all of it.
Yeah. Did you have one?
Does it, well, I have one, but I don't think it's a positive one.
Okay.
No, I mean, my mom on her deathbed said stress kills.
Yeah, okay.
Every time I get stressed out, I go stress
I mean, I think that's positive.
Negative in a way, but...
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a little dark, but I feel like it's positive because really it's a reminder that, like, if you continue to engage in this stress, like, it will kill you, and that's true. It'll kill your emotional and physical health. So I think, in my eyes, I see it as positive. If you're telling yourself during times of high stress kills, and it reminds you to step back, then I see that as positive. Anyone else have a good one? I did a talk on self-care for the bicentennial. I don't know if any of you guys were there. But somebody in the audience, I should have asked her name, she said that she puts her self-care mantra as her password for her email. And so every time she has to log in to like Duo or to her email, she created something like, "It will be okay," or "I love myself," or something like that, because it has to constantly change. And so I thought that was brilliant. So every time she has to type in her password, it's like a reminder that everything's going to be okay. I thought that was a cool idea. I'm going to show a video here for you guys about mindfulness. It obviously says mindfulness is a superpower, and I think this is a way to kind of frame it. It's pretty cool.
I'm going to give you one simple, serviceable definition, which is this. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. Imagine how useful this could be. Just as an example, driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. How do you normally react? I think most of us, we normally react by having a thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then you immediately, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. You actually become pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus and your reaction. With just a little bit of mindfulness, in that same situation, you might notice my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts, I'm getting angry. But you don't necessarily have to act on it and chase that person down the road screaming at them with your kids in the back of the car thinking you've gone nuts. Now, you might be thinking, don't I need to get angry sometimes? Aren't I justified? I would say yes, but probably not as much as you think. The proposition here is not that you should be rendered by mindfulness into some lifeless, non-judgmental blob. The proposition is that you should learn how to respond wisely to things that happen to you, rather than just reacting blindly. And that, my friend, is a superpower. How do you get it? The way to get it is through meditation. I believe that meditation and mindfulness are the next big public health revolution. In the 1940s, if you told somebody you were going running, they would have said, who's chasing you? But then what happened next? The scientists swooped in, they showed that physical exercise is really good for you, and now all of us do it, and if we don't, we feel guilty about it. And that's where I think we're headed with mindfulness and meditation. It's going to join the pantheon of no-brainers like brushing your teeth, eating well, and taking the meds your doctor prescribed for you. Let me just close by saying, mindfulness is not going to solve all of your problems. It's not going to render your life a nonstop parade of unicorns and rainbows. Nonetheless, this is a superpower, and one that is accessible by you immediately.
That's pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah. So it's an interesting way to think about it. And so I think it's something to consider. Like, we don't innately have these powers to be maybe mindful. It's not something we're born with, but it is something that we can learn how to do. And once you master it, I don't know if there's ever completely mastering it, but once you really master it, it is a superpower. So it's something to consider. You can go to the next one. These are some stickers for self-care rewards. I don't know if you guys can see, but the top left says, I didn't bottle it up. These are like the kind of stickers that your kids, get when they go to the dentist or something, or that you put on your refrigerator when you get a good report card. Remembered to breathe, asked for help, took time to recharge. I I survived a panic attack. And I didn't pretend I was fine when I wasn't, right? So these are some really good stickers. The point of this slide is that when you do self-care, I want you to be really proud of yourself and to reward yourself, right? Because when we reward behaviors, they're more likely to happen more often. So when you see somebody doing really good self-care, I want you to say, like, man, that's awesome. I'm so proud of you. You took the time to do coloring at lunchtime instead of going on Facebook. Like, kudos to you. That's great. And I want you guys to celebrate it for yourself, too. I wish I had these stickers to actually give to you, and I would. So you have to kind of internally tell yourself, or you could give yourself a gold star, that you did self-care and you're really proud of yourself. And I want you guys to share that with each other, because it is a really good thing to do, and I know it's difficult. Okay? We are going to do a brief mindfulness meditation while we're here. What I thought this was a great opportunity for us to try it together. What I'd like to do is just encourage you to relax, sit back, put your both feet on the floor. I think this works best if your arms are not crossed, maybe sitting on your lap or down to your sides, whatever's more comfortable to you. And if you'd like to close your eyes, then you're welcome to. If you don't feel comfortable, that's totally fine. But all I want you to do is listen to the guided meditation and just try your best to go with it. It's brief. I think it's 5 minutes. Okay? Yeah. We can turn the lights down. Yep.
And rest your hands on your knees. Bring your awareness to the touch of your body on your seat. Feel the weight of your body on your chair or cushion. Begin by finding a comfortable posture. Move slightly forward and back to one side and then the other. Find a comfortable balance as you come back to the center. Now, sitting up straight, feel your head on the top of your neck. How can you sit so that your head, neck, and back feel most comfortable? Take a few deep breaths. While you are breathing deeply, relax your shoulders, your stomach muscles, the muscles in your face and your hands and your legs. Let go of all the tension in your body. Now bring your attention back to your breath. Where do you feel it most? In your nose or your stomach? In the rise and fall of your chest? Just notice where you feel it most and allow your breathing to be natural and relaxed. Now, notice what the breath feels like as it enters through your nose, goes down your throat, filling your lungs, and back out through your nose. Notice your stomach and chest rise and fall with each inhale and exhale. And allow your breathing to be natural and relaxed. Now bring your awareness to the sensation of your breath in your nose. Feel your breath as it comes in and goes out. Just focus on this sensation, paying attention to each inhale and exhale. when your mind wanders or if you become distracted, just notice what's going on in your head and then gently bring your attention back to your breath, going in and out. Focus on the sensation of your breath in the foreground, allowing thoughts and feelings to come and go in the background. Now gently bring your attention back to the touch of your body on your seat and open your eyes.
Thank you. How was that? Was good? Do you feel any differently than when we started? Okay. And that was just a 5-minute exercise. Oh, she wants to go again. That was just a 5-minute exercise. You guys could do this at work. You could do it in your car. You could do it when you get home from work. You could do it in the morning. So this is how easy this could be. We're not talking about breaking out a whole pillow and a whole room to do like yoga and mindfulness meditation. Like, you don't need much. This is on YouTube. Anybody can access it. Okay? And so I would challenge you, if this made a shift in your being at all, then it's a good sign that this could be helpful for you as a tool in the future. Okay? All right. Good job, guys. Okay. All of you should have a packet on your table. Does everybody have one? On the front it says something like sources of resiliency or protective factors. Yep, it looks like this. Okay. So we're going to talk about creating a stress survival plan that's unique to you, and that's why each of you have your own packet here. How was that? Was good? Do you feel any differently than when we started? Okay. And that was just a 5-minute exercise. Oh, she wants to go again. That was just a 5-minute exercise. You guys could do this at work. You could do it in your car. You could do it when you get home from work. You could do it in the morning. So this is how easy this could be. We're not talking about breaking out a whole pillow and a whole room to do like yoga and mindfulness meditation. Like, you don't need much. This is on YouTube. Anybody can access it. Okay? And so I would challenge you, if this made a shift in your being at all, then it's a good sign that this could be helpful for you as a tool in the future. Okay? All right. Good job, guys. Okay. All of you should have a packet on your table. Does everybody have one? On the front it says something like sources of resiliency or protective factors. Yep, it looks like this. Okay. So we're going to talk about creating a stress survival plan that's unique to you, and that's why each of you have your own packet here. But before we do that, you'll see the first page says protective factors. And what I'd really like you to think about, we'll take a couple of minutes for this, is what are your protective factors, or what are your sources of resiliency? And by sources of resiliency, I mean, what are you already good at in your life that will serve you in dealing with stress and change in the future? And so a lot of people don't think about these things. Sources of resiliency could be something like you have a really positive marriage, or you have a strong support system, you are really good physically, you take care of yourself physically, or you're really active in a spiritual community, something like that is a source of strength for you. What I'd like you to do is just take a minute or two to make some marks here on your sheet for your protective factors, and I want you to check out kind of where you're weak, where you're moderate, and where you're strong. And then I'd like you to talk about it with the people at your table. Maybe share a couple of things that you feel like you are kind of in either the moderate to strong area or weak area if you feel like sharing that with each other. So let's take a minute to just read through it and make a couple of checks. Why don't we take a couple of minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, and we'll just kind of share with each other what our sources of strength are, what our sources of resiliency are, our protective factors. I think it's helpful to kind of say these out loud to somebody. Surprise you? Did anything about this exercise surprise you? Or did you already know that you had some good protective factors in place? No? Yeah.
It has nothing to do with, I'm sorry, with your question, but
yeah, it's okay.
what I was noticing is that self-esteem and healthy thinking to me seem to be tied.
Okay.
And I say that because I gave myself 1 score in self-esteem, but another score in healthy thinking. But then I thought about it, and I said, well, if I'm really a healthy thinker, why would my self-esteem be high?
That's an interesting question. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm on the right track with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an individual question for each person. I think someone could have healthy thinking and low self-esteem. I think it depends. You may have really healthy thinking, let's say, about work kind of stuff, but have unhealthy thinking about your body, for example. So I don't think it's either or. But you have to check what makes sense for you, and I'm glad that it got your wheels turning a little bit. Any other comments about it? Was it helpful to kind of voice what some of your sources of resiliency are? Yeah? Okay. So we'll go ahead and kind of move along to the other sheets in your packet there. We can go to the next one. Yeah. The reason why I say up here on the slide that we need to document evidence is because a lot of times when we're in our emotional states, we forget to document some things that we know are actually true. So it can be really hard to navigate between what's logical and what's emotional, and that's why I think it's important to document what you know. And so the worksheets that I gave you are designed to do just that. We're not going to work on them necessarily right now, but they're tools for you that if you're dealing with a huge stress or change, they allow you to process what you know about yourself, what you know about the change. It allows you to take a look at past change and how you've dealt with it and what you've done well so that you can utilize your resources that you have to deal with a future change. It also challenges you to decatastrophize. So we all tend to catastrophize, I think, when it comes to change, especially unexpected change. And so these tools allow you to take a look at what you might be catastrophizing and break it down into smaller, more manageable pieces. Okay? And then the last one, the last page, or 2 or 3, I can't remember, talk about building your own self-care plan. So going through some of the exercises that we talked about today, figuring out what works for you, and really making a plan so that when you need it in times of high stress, you have something that you can use. I think of this as kind of your own personalized self-care plan. And so I recommend filling it out, whenever you feel like you need to prepare for an upcoming change. Or you can make copies of it for yourself and use it as many times as you want, because things keep changing. Okay? Questions about the pamphlet? Okay, the other thing you have on your table is a sheet that talks about 10 ways to embrace change. I was really inspired by this. I found it in Real Simple magazine. So I wanted to share it with you. I'm not going to read it out loud to you, but basically it just talks about different ways to embrace change, and it has some humorous kind of remarks in it. And so this is something that I would challenge you to keep around. Like, post this up in your work area, post it on your refrigerator, somewhere where you can read it and remind yourself that there are 10 different ways that you can embrace change. And so this is just a tool for you to use as well. Okay. End here before we have time for any questions with a quote by Rumi. Sorry, I'm standing in front of you. Try not to resist the changes that come your way. Instead, let life live through you. And do not worry that your life is turning upside down. How do you know that the side you're used to is better than the one to come? So that's just a way to kind of take a little bit of a more positive outlook and embrace the change whenever possible. That's just a pug. That's just a Rosie the Riveter pug. One of my favorite cartoon artists, Gemma Carrell. Any thoughts or questions or anything you'd like to share? Any takeaways?
Quick wrap-up logistics. As I said, we will be sharing Jill's slides. I will also make copies of the handouts that you have and share those as well. Margaret is taping today's session, and as soon as she gets that processed and gets the link back to me, I will send you all those materials in one piece. If you have any colleagues that you think would greatly benefit from this material, if you go to the RSVP site where you put your own name, if you just put their name and their unique name, if I don't have to go look it up on Community, thank you very much, Paul. I will include them in the email list and let them know that you asked that I share the materials with them on the side. Next month we will be doing another session on change. We will be talking with the Dean of the Business School. And he's going to do a little bit more of an academic perspective on change and how he feels that those folks who are doing research on change within the business school and leading change and organizational effectiveness and things like that might be able to share with those of us who are doing it in practice in our work environment. And he's going to kind of be doing an open conversation. My understanding is we're going to try and do about a half hour on his perspective of where he thinks Ross fits in the world of change and what he thinks they can maybe offer to some of us, and then doing kind of a Q&A. And he's a wonderful and dynamic speaker, so hopefully that'll be a great session. Trying to think of, then we'll come back in May, and Loretta Thomas is going to come back and do a session on appreciative inquiry. And then we're going to take the month of June off because Voices does their annual meeting during June, and so it's a little hard for some of us to take a couple of days off to participate with those things. If you know of anybody who should be added to the series, feel free to do the same thing I suggested to you, add their name and unique name on my RSVP list, and then I'll add them to the master list at the end of this month. Thank you so much, and Jill, thank you for your time.
No problem. No problem.